my whole life. And now, I just need a chance to finally be free.
Oh, I have a bad feeling about this.
Okay, we need to talk about Star Wars Outlaws. All of us saw the trailer, and those of us paying close enough attention may have noticed something. The main character, Kay, is an ultra-slick, uber-confident scoundrel in the Star Wars universe. She can bar fight, fly, gunfight, you name it. This is something we've seen a lot of lately. The girl boss, the tough-as-nails, desexualized badass that can do just about anything a man can and probably better. Critical Drinker has a great video on this phenomenon, so I highly encourage you to go watch the video because it will be an excellent companion to what we're going to talk about here. I'll summarize his argument briefly. In modern TV, cinema, and games, you see the strong female character rising to supplant the leading man as the new concept of what a hero is. Just look at the new Indiana Jones movie and you'll pick up on this. An aging Indy hands over the whip and fedora to a smarter, more capable, younger female version of himself. The strong female character is a stoic, tough-talking badass who doesn't need to fail because failing is for losers. She knows everything she needs to, just needs to transcend the artificial boundaries put upon her by the patriarchy. Kay in the trailer even says she's been held back her whole life. She's awesome, doesn't need to learn anything. She just needs to be free. Now, of course, I'm speculating, but I have good reason to trust my instincts on this one. It could be Kay has a whole thoughtful character arc, and we get to see how she develops such incredible confidence and skill, but it's more likely, I think, it'll be the case that she's awesome from the start and was just unfairly held back. What's troubling here is that if this character were a man, they would come across as toxic, arrogant, self-assured, imposing, and overly violent. What about these traits being grafted onto a female character makes them suddenly admirable? It's almost like a caricature of a person, simply a vehicle for the writer's revenge against a world they see, wrongly, as exclusionary. The sad thing is they're taking revenge against a world that only exists in their minds. The majority of people are fair, kind, well-balanced, and welcoming. I can't help but see in Kay's scowl a person who doesn't like themselves and finds the world beneath their contempt. I suspect also that this is a kind of wish fulfillment on the part of the writers who want to be this kind of assertive and dominating person rather than resentful, shy, and judgmental. It's as if to say, ha, I could care less what you think. I can all but guarantee that the media will endlessly simp for this while the creators hide behind allegations of sexism when confronted with the poor quality of their story. The Last of Us 2 is a great example of this exact thing happening. Writing male and female characters is not that much of a different process. We need to see them struggle, overcome challenges, and address their flaws. Men and women can be vulnerable, they can be sensual. They're not pure stereotypes of either symbolic representation of maleness or femaleness. Presenting a flawless character, whether they're male or female, isn't a story because there's nothing left for them to do. Take, for example, the warrior Achilles. Achilles is destined to die in the Trojan War, but his fame will live forever. He embraces this fate in blind pursuit of Kleos, the Greek ideal of renown, which ultimately makes for his undoing. Yes, he dies a legendary death at Troy, but visiting him in the underworld later, Odysseus in the Odyssey finds Achilles not wreathed in glory, but a pale shadow of his once great self. Would a female Achilles' fate be any different? I suspect not, but all overpowered characters can do is become victims to that power. What the writers believe will be progress is really just writing that has nowhere to go, a story with no story to tell. My criticism has absolutely nothing to do with the gender of the character. Now, I have some receipts to back up my theory. I did a little research, and I think there's a specific reason why this trailer is 90% a highlight reel of Kay's badassery. You see, the writing team for the game is actually one I've covered before. Some of the key players from Far Cry 6 are leading the charge on this one, and well, if you played Far Cry 6, you probably can imagine why I'm a little concerned. If you didn't play Far Cry 6, it featured such story beats like this one.
You attacked my home. You put your filth on my network. You have any idea the embarrassment I had to endure because of your disgusting performance? I have given everything I am to be here. You think you can take that away from me? My academy was built to save fake Yarans like you and that marimacho you spread your perversions with. And where is she? Does she not approve of you playing with guns?
Yes, you see that unarmed woman who gets riddled with bullets? She made the mistake of misgendering the shooter's female-to-male transgender boyfriend. This scene just hits a little different after a certain news event that happened recently that I will not mention by name. Far Cry aside, I think it's worth the time for anyone curious about how this game will shake out to take a closer look at the team behind it and their bona fides. I've gone ahead and done that work for you and researched the team's public statements to get a better idea of their worldview. Now, I'll say here that I am not taking particular issue with their opinions. I may personally disagree with them, but their opinions are their opinions. It's up to you to infer whether or not those opinions will have any impact on the quality of their writing. I'm also not saying I know that the game's story or the game itself will be bad. Everything is purely conjecture, and the jury will be out until we actually get to try the game. I will be making the case, however, that based on their public statements, we can make a very fair guess that Star Wars Outlaws will be more ideology than story. First up, we have Naveed Kavari, the narrative director on the game. He was narrative director on Far Cry 6, and as far as his Twitter goes, he posts a lot about Iran, or did when there was unrest there amid protests and government crackdowns. Besides that, he's posted once or twice about Ukraine. Besides that, it's hard to get a sense of which way his political compass is pointing beyond a general Gen X type centrism. One thing I did notice is that no one closely associated with the narrative design seems to be a big Star Wars fan, as they hardly ever post about it. I do think it's fair to criticize why he got this job on Star Wars Outlaws after Far Cry 6 came up so short on sales and awards. They even reissued a Game of the Year edition version of the game, despite the game not winning Game of the Year. Weird how that works. Furthermore, his picks for the writing team are equally questionable, considering they were along for the ride on Far Cry 6's flat narrative and equally flat gameplay. This increases the odds that woke lightning will strike twice. Up next, we have lead writer Nikki Darrell, or Nikki Foy as she goes by on Twitter. Now, I've covered some of her tweets in the Far Cry video, but instead of rehash those, I've done a little bit of a deeper dive into her account and found a few things I think you'll be interested to hear. I will read a few of them and you can judge for yourself. I tweeted a while ago about how weird it was to not see a ton of older women/lifers in this industry and got a huge response from men saying, "I really hope you stay, frowny face." And that's well-intentioned, but it's not a matter of women sticking it out, it's a matter of change. Now, I will just say I find this odd coming from someone who seemingly came from quite humble beginnings. Her previous writing experience before working on Ubisoft was, according to her website, some short films and a mobile game based on Kim Kardashian. To rise through the ranks and be lead writer on a major AAA game belonging to the biggest science fiction franchise of all time, I would say that's quite a lot of change. Wouldn't you say? In this next tweet, she's talking about her dog being her husband, but she says, "Husband is a word that has no gender assigned to it to me." Well, in English, husband is a gendered noun. So as a writer, I would hope that you would know that. Daryl is also apparently queer, according to this tweet I came across. Now, this is of course not a point of criticism. A person's orientation has no bearing on their writing ability. I mean, for all you know, I'm gay. It does, however, raise the question of if she will use her position to pursue advocacy over telling a good story. This, to me, cheapens writing, no matter which way you lean. If she were a far-right ultra-conservative, that would just be problematic if she were prioritizing those values over writing a good story. Writing is a matter of technical skill and creativity. Ideology has no part to play. Now, it also so happens that the actress cast to play the main character is a gay activist, but that just might be a coincidence. There's no real way for us to know. If I were a betting man, though, I'd wager at least it played a small part. And if we see romance at all in Outlaws, it'll be a gay romance. Next, we see Daryl retweets this quote from someone responding to the Texas ban on gender reassignment surgery, hormones, and puberty blockers for children. The tweet she's responding to refers to an employee of the state's child welfare department being investigated for child abuse in relation to the law. It is a moral obligation to scream in the faces of everyone who made this possible. They should be ashamed to show their faces in public. They deserve no kind service, no quiet dinners, no peace. In a civil society, you cannot terrorize people. We have laws and a democratic system to replace the lawmakers, and there's no place for violence or intimidation. It's sad to see Daryl advocating for this kind of behavior. Finally, I want to play you a clip from a podcast Daryl appeared on.
But I think like the way that we get better and then make people like us better is to amp up diversity. I think that's just like the number one like goal is just like get unique voices in the room and on the page and in the game. And that's when your stories are going to start to get better, because when you're in an echo chamber, you just can't make good art. So I think like that is for me personally, that's like my number one priority.
Oh shit, here we go again.
Now, why is diversity important for good writing? I'm not suggesting it isn't, I just don't understand how it is. And she doesn't expand on the point. This is worrying because learning to write is learning to think. And based on her response, I can't help but feel she hasn't thought much beyond the platitudes of championing diversity. Furthermore, in the true spirit of diversity, why didn't she insist a person of color have her job working on the game? Next, we have Alice Rendell, who is a narrative systems designer. Let's have a look at this tweet about allyship. An example of allyship in the workplace. Long ago, during a stand-up, we were deciding who should start. A colleague pointed to me, the only woman, and said, "Ladies first." One of my male colleagues immediately jumped up saying, "Well, that's an outdated opinion. I'll go first." I'm genuinely confused here because isn't a man speaking over a woman a bad thing? Shouldn't she have gone first anyway? Shouldn't women be heard? I'm literally honestly very confused here. And what's wrong with saying ladies first? Is that just not still being polite? Okay, my head is starting to hurt. Next we have this one, and it is a doozy. Race, gender, etc. shouldn't matter. It should be about the best person for the job. No, and let me explain why. If you retweet something like this, I don't see how it wouldn't be the case that you fundamentally just don't believe that people have equal value or that there's such a thing as merit. Everything is arranged hierarchically in a power struggle that's set up around race, sex, and so forth. I can't help but question whether someone who believed this could help themselves from introducing such thinking into their work. The next one is more about her taste in games, as she's praising The Last of Us 2. If you're familiar at all with my channel, you'll know I think Last of Us 2 is perhaps the worst game ever made, so to see someone praising it makes me very suspicious. I finally finished Last of Us Part 2 and managed to avoid all spoilers. Wow, this game. The level of polish just blew me away. Naughty Dog always makes me want to up my game as a dev. I'll be eagerly awaiting all the tasks on how everything is built. Congrats to the team. Last of Us 2, of course, was a financial failure and brought the once legendary Naughty Dog to the brink of collapse. Their Last of Us multiplayer game has been indefinitely shelved after 4 years of development, and recent cash grab remakes also failed to generate sales. Next up, and this one is pretty damning, is her admitting she doesn't like Star Wars. Now, granted, this was 3 years ago, plenty of time to change your mind, but I think we can all agree the best people to work on this would be people who like Star Wars. She writes, "For ages, I couldn't work out why I didn't really like Star Wars. Then I watched Rogue One and The Mandalorian and realized I just don't like the space magic." In this next one, it's one of those generic diversity is good, but I won't explain why type posts. But here she's addressing all white people. So all you white people, pay attention. If you were to simply change the word white to anything else, you probably would get banned off of Twitter for this, but let's have a look. "And white friends, this will probably make you uncomfortable to listen to because we all have and do fail a lot. But that uncomfortable feeling is good. It means we can be critical of our own behavior and grow and evolve to be better." Finally, I want to highlight this utterly insufferable tweet she retweeted. Lisette Titre Montgomery writes, "If you're serious about diversity, pay me, market me. My expertise does not come free. Don't approach me unless you're willing to invest or you're not really serious. Most just want to virtue signal and pat themselves on the back. Stop wasting POC," that means people of color, "time." The utter entitlement, not to mention the blatant racism, to suggest simply belonging to a particular group is a monetizable skill. You know, I just can't imagine this is what Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was dreaming of. Next, we have Soliloquy Douglas, another writer on the game. It seems like all her writing experience has happened at Ubisoft, working on Watch Dogs Legion and Avatar's Frontiers of Pandora, and now Star Wars Outlaws. She has a rainbow in her bio, as you can see here. You know, again, not a criticism. Just I notice most folks who have that tend to have a certain political persuasion. Sort of like if you saw somebody wearing a MAGA hat. You could probably take a good guess about their beliefs. There's also this picture she posted, but maybe that's just like a cool background. I don't really recognize the colors, like if that's a flag or something. Her Twitter is pretty straightforward, not really any hot takes or anything like that. There just was this one tweet where she writes, "We've been in mandatory respect the workplace training sessions. It's quite eye-opening to see men who claim to be feminists argue that workplace discrimination policies are unreasonable. Without more context, I deign to comment, but if even the male feminists are complaining that the rules are too strict, maybe they're a tad strict. Maybe, just maybe." Next up, we have Aki, I cannot pronounce this, Aki Hallgren. Apologies for butchering your name. The senior quest designer on Star Wars Outlaws. His account is pretty benign, but he did retweet this meme about Rogue One being about militant leftist terrorists. Don't really remember that being a theme from the movie, but okay. Next, he retweets a rant from commentator Ash Sarkar, who is a communist from the United Kingdom. And he retweeted this tweet, which reads, "I genuinely do not think a lot of cis-het men fully understand the power that them simply telling their friends, 'Hey, that behavior is not okay,' can wield." So just a fun fact, the guy who came up with the whole cis thing, his name is Volkmar Sigurch. You should look him up. It's Sigusch. Take a look at some of his work, because he has said some disturbing things, shall we say, ones that cannot be repeated in a YouTube video. So, you know, I'll leave that one to you. You can go look him up and you get a good feel for him. Anyway, this tweet is your garden variety leftism, but I will say he is the only person that seems to actually tweet about Star Wars who's working on this. He has a long history of tweeting about Dark Force. What is that? Shadows of the End. I can't remember what game it is. Dark Forces, I think it's called. Now, finally, I wanted to introduce you to someone who I don't believe is working on the game, but is at Ubisoft. His name is Yusuf Maguid. Mr. McGuid has some very racist things to say about white people. Let's have a look. Number 1, every brown culture shares 2 things: a healthy distrust of white people and a passionate love of mangoes. I guess if you're white, you're just not allowed. You're not allowed to love mangoes, I guess. But again, if you change the word white to any other word, you would be in very serious trouble. But I doubt me exposing this tweet will do anything at all. In fact, as you can see, it was viewed 23,000 times. And Yusuf, as far as I understand it, is still employed by Ubisoft. I wonder how he treats his white colleagues. I mean, he must be a joy to work with. Now, you can actually go to his Twitter account and search the word white and get some pretty interesting results like this one. Think of how many unqualified white men are applying and accepting jobs with reckless, unearned confidence. Can someone explain how this is not massively racist? Can anyone explain that to me, please? Imagine being interviewed by this guy. I'm serious. If he has ever done any hiring while at Ubisoft, I think there's somebody out there who has a pretty good discrimination case on their hands. Next, we have make white men getting their ass beat by women of color a whole ass genre. Okay, so we got some violence against white men in there as well. He also seems to hate America, saying, "I hate anything red, white, and blue." Then we have him posting this photo of a coffee cup that says, "Carry yourself with the confidence of a mediocre white man." Now, if this said black man or Asian man, what do you suppose would happen to him? But yet he can say all of these very racist things about white people and nothing happens. Maybe white people should just, I don't know, stop buying Ubisoft products, perhaps. I wish that uncovering this would have some kind of effect, but honestly, I don't think that it will. And that makes me pretty sad, to be honest, because, well, I'm white and I'm a good person. I don't hold any hateful beliefs. And yet here's someone in the gaming industry, an industry that I love, openly saying these terrible things. But let's bring it all back home and we'll talk about Outlaws. As you can see from the tweets I've highlighted, there's a spectrum of leftist opinions running through the Outlaws team. What you won't see, unless I've overlooked it in my research, is a fervent right-wing Republican working on the game. Now, wouldn't that be true diversity? I think they should hire at least one Trump supporter to write the game. But of course, that won't happen. Why? Because these big companies and corporations are captured by a diversity mafia that claims to want equality and equal rights, but just for them. Apparently, if you're anything but a fellow traveler or belonging to one of these special groups, there's just no place for you. Star Wars Outlaws might be good. I don't want to judge it too harshly. I am a big fan of Massive. They made Tom Clancy's The Division. I think The Division was an amazing game. So at least the game will look really nice, probably. But I can't help but look at these tweets and look at Far Cry 6 and just be like, oh man, like they're gonna get it right this time. I can't get there. I just can't believe that's gonna happen. When people tell you who they are, believe them. As for Kay, I hope she is an authentic character and not just an unstoppable badass from the start, because this really robs players of a genuine experience in both story and gameplay, because what good is it to be invincible right from the start? The idea that women have to be tough, snarky, androgynous ass kickers is just the old, outdated male stereotype, but inverted. Think of Cal Kestis from Jedi Survivor. He doesn't begin the game knowing everything. He has to struggle through the trauma of surviving the Jedi Purge. He faces his deepest fears and reemerges from the struggle stronger and more whole than when he started. I hope that's what we get from Kay as well, but I can't help but feel that that's just not the kind of story these writers are interested in telling. It's going to be about, we need to change the industry. There's not enough diversity. Here's some more diversity. Oh, by the way, all the aliens are gay. It's okay. You know, we get it, but I just don't see that as entertaining. You know, We get lectured enough about this kind of stuff on TV all the time, and in newspapers and in the internet in general. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and until next time, game on.